Well, hello everybody, and welcome to a new video. Some time ago, I made a video where I talked about the importance of cropping photographs. If you haven't seen that, I'll leave a link up in the corner here. Now, like post-processing, cropping an image either in camera or after the fact is, in my opinion, an integral part of photography and composition. Cropping photographs will change the overall mood and dynamics of any picture and, in essence, make or break what you're trying to convey from that photograph. Now, for those of you that follow my channel regularly, you may have noticed that since I switched to the Fujifilm medium format system, I take an awful lot more Panos images. And there's a good reason for this. Firstly, Fujifilm offers a number of in-camera cropped formats that I find tremendously helpful. And one of those is the letterbox crop of the 65 by 24 format that I use all of the time. The funny thing is, though, is that before I got into the Fujifilm system, I very rarely shot Panos. And if I did, I would do what most other photographers do, and that is level the camera off, take several vertical shots, and then stitch them together in post-processing. I will say that since I use a 100 megapixel camera, there isn't really a need for that. And since I have that crop feature conveniently placed in my camera, I do seem to be taking a lot more Panos. The funny thing is that I'm not alone. A lot of my friends use the Fujifilm medium format cameras and they find exactly the same thing. They probably didn't take that many Panos before, but now that they have that convenient Pano crop in camera, they take more Panos. But what about those of you that don't have access to megapixel cameras and rely on photo processing programs to do the work for you? Well, it has been some time since I stitched images together, so I thought it would be interesting to see some of the new software that is out there and see how easy it is and what kind of job it does when stitching multiple photographs together. After all, as most of you know, I'm all about keeping the workflow simple and uncomplicated. So with that in mind, I thought I would try something a little bit new. Recently, the folks at Skylum contacted me and asked if I would try Luminar Neo and the new extras that go with the program. Now, these extras are a set of plugins that seamlessly work with Luminar Neo and are available on either the Luminar subscription-based program or the buyout version. Now, these plugins are extras, so there is an extra cost involved once you've downloaded Luminar Neo. The extras can either be purchased as a set or individually and include HDR merge, focus stacking, upscale, and panorama stitching. Now, today we're just going to concentrate on panorama stitching. I haven't been using Luminar Neo for very long. And if you watch regularly, you will know that I am a bit of a curmudgeon when it comes to processing. The problem is that I'm pretty set in my ways, and for the longest time I've been using Lightroom and Photoshop. Many of my viewers are always recommending or even occasionally complaining as to, well, why don't you use other post-processing programs? And the thing is that, as I'm sure all of these programs are amazing, the problem is that there's still a learning curve for all of these. And that's the part that usually turns me off. Do I want to learn yet another software program, or do I want to be outside making photographs? And I think most of you will know the answer to that one. However, when I watched the demonstration with some of Luminar's features, I figured, well, I should stop being a grumpy old bugger and give it a go. So today I'm going to give Luminar's panorama stitching extra a go, just to prove that I still can learn new tricks even if I am a curmudgeon. All right, we've opened up Luminar Neo, and as you can see here, we have a bunch of images. Now I have opened up a bunch of different scenarios that I wanted to try with the plugin over here, just to see what kind of job it does with them. But there are a few things that you might want to keep in mind, and this is for any program with any Pano stitching software. The first thing is to make sure that you use a white balance that is constant for each exposure. Because if you have your camera set on auto white balance, then you run the risk of getting color banding throughout the final pano. I usually leave my camera on the sunny icon, daylight. And the reason why I do that for both video and just photography is that the white balance is consistent throughout all of my images and my video. If you do leave it on auto, the problem is when you're doing stitching like this, you might get some variances in the light. And if that happens, you might have one exposure that's slightly warmer than another, and then you'll get banding going throughout. It won't show up so much in detailed shots like this, but if you have a pano with lots of sky or foreground that doesn't have a lot of detail, then it will be very noticeable. So stick to one white balance option. Next up, a tripod is a really good idea because it helps you line up each exposure more accurately. Now you can do panos handheld, but I do recommend a tripod. The next step is, for each exposure, be sure to give yourself lots of overlap from image to image so that the software can pick up on the similarities between each photograph. So what I mean by that is, you'll notice in this exposure here, we have this Japanese maple, this red Japanese maple. It takes up about, well, almost half the frame, but a good third of the frame. If we go over to the next image here, it's the same Japanese maple, but it takes up quite a bit of the frame because we really want the software to be able to sink its teeth into those details from image to image. If you have it right on the edge, then there's a good chance it won't be able to stitch them together. So just keep those things in mind. Now, I haven't had an opportunity to use this program an awful lot, but so far what I have used, it's really, really easy to use, which is one of the things that I really like about these programs in post-processing. The easier to use, the better it is for me. In this situation, for the panos, just open up the images that you want to put in your pano or when you want to stitch together. Just select all of those photographs and just drag them over to this box here. They'll load up in the box. Hit the little circle there with the three dots, and you'll see a number of options. There's distortion correction, which I've clicked, de-vignette, which gets rid of the vignetting, and chromatic aberration. I'm not really sure why you wouldn't hit those, but anyway, it gives you that option. The fourth option is ghost reduction. I'm not really sure why I can't use that at the moment. I think, and I could be wrong here, someone help me out here if I'm incorrect, but I think it actually picks up if there's movement in any of the images. And if there is movement, then that option is available. And then you're able to pick a reference image that you want to use that will get rid of that ghosting effect. Anyway, just put all those images into the plugin and just click start. Now, of course, this will take longer if your files are massive. Also, if your computer is quite slow, then this might take some time. With these particular files on this computer, it doesn't take that long. And as you can see, from a distance anyway, it looks like it's done a really great job. So let's just kind of scroll through this. You'll notice that there's two ornamental herons here and a live one sitting there. Well, from a quick look, I cannot see any overlap, so that's a good thing. Seems to have done a really good job, even with the mallard there. Okay, now down here, there are a number of other options that you can use. I would just keep it on either the first one or the cylindrical. They all give you a slightly different look to your pano. One of the things that I did find that I really quite like with this is if we just zoom out or zoom in just a little bit, you'll notice that it has quite a curve to it. By just dragging it around in the frame here, you can adjust the horizon line quite nicely, or the verticals as well. So I really like that option. if we leave it in the center here, the things that I'm looking for are, if we just zoom in a little bit here, the posts on the gazebo there, I want those to be vertical, and I also want my horizon line to be relatively level as well. Luckily there's lots of trees here, so you can't really tell how level it is, but you can definitely see the verticals in the gazebo. So if I drag it down just ever so slightly, that will bring those verticals more in line with what I want. So it's just a matter of experimenting a little bit. You can drag it up or drag it down, and you can change the whole perspective of everything in the frame. Once you figure that out, just click continue, and then it'll give you a cropping option. You can auto crop, or you can do it manually as well. And also, after you've made your pano and saved it, if you want to recrop it, you can do that in the edit module at the top here. So we'll just push that, save, and then we can make a folder on the side here to save our panos. All right, one of the features that I thought was really interesting is that you can make panos out of video clips. Now, I know you can do that with your iPhone, and you can do it with some smaller cameras. I think you might be able to do it with some of the mirrorless cameras, but it's kind of a neat feature. So I have a couple of video clips here. This is one that I took in the mountains, I think it was last year, a 50-40. And it's the same thing. You just grab your video clip, just drag it over to the plugin here. Now, when you click on this little circle here, it doesn't give you any options for chromatic aberration or vignette or anything like that. But just hit start and you'll come up with this box that shows the whole video here. So you can see this video is up in the mountains, and I just slowly pan over to the left here, which is great. So I should be able to make a pretty decent pano out of this. So the idea behind this is, obviously you don't want the whole video, so just bring it down to the point where you want the pano to start. So say there, and then the end point, let's see where we go here. Let's go to about there. So we've just cropped out that middle section there. Just click continue. Again, this might take a long time or a very short time depending on the size of the file in your computer. And here we can see the results of that pano. I think what it does is it actually makes images out of frames in the video and then stitches them together. And again, we have a few options. I tend to just leave it on the default, which is the first one. This one's actually not too bad. You can see the horizon is off just a little bit. Let's have a look at the first one again. It's still off a bit, but let's see. It's too bad there wasn't an option. Oh, I spoke too soon. I was going to say, it's too bad there's not an option for you to be able to move the whole thing around, but you can. So there, we've straightened up or leveled up the horizon, or straightened it up, and now we can just pull this down ever so slightly. That looks pretty good right there. Okay, continue. And it's automatically cropped. That looks pretty good. And there we go. And we can save that. And then I would probably work on that a little bit, because it looks a little bit, it looks like it needs some contrast adjustment there. All right, now for this pano, this was a quick shot that I took in my back garden. It's very sunny out there right now, so the light is very contrasty, but I wanted to see how it does with vertical panos. Let's just click on all these photographs here and then just drag them over to the panorama stitching. Click on that little box again and make sure that we have distortion clicked, devignette, and chromatic aberration. Right, those are all set, and just push start and see how this does. All right, and it actually worked. Now there are a couple of issues here that I can see with this photograph. I don't think it has anything to do with the fault of the program though. But what's happening here is that it's going to be really hard to get the verticals here. You'll notice that the trees are quite vertical, but the bird bath down in the corner here isn't vertical at all. Now, if the bird bath wasn't there, it probably wouldn't be a problem because you just wouldn't notice it. If I drag this file up to kind of straighten up that bird bath, like so, then you'll notice that all of a sudden now, all of our trees are kind of leaning outwards, so that's not great either. If I bring it over this way, it brings the trees up a little bit, so you'll probably have to do a little bit of compromising here. If we try some of the other kind of results here, that one just stretches it out a little bit. Those are all very similar for this photograph. That one might be a little bit better. And this one here, that's actually not too bad right there. Like I said, you imagine if this was a mountain scene and you had these wildflowers in the foreground. Incidentally, this was taken with a wide angle lens at 35mm on a medium format camera, but it's done an awesome job of connecting all of these four images together. I'm quite impressed actually. Usually when I do panos, I use a telephoto lens. It'd be interesting to see if you could actually make a pano with an ultra wide lens. I would suspect that it would probably have a hard time, but it's worth exploring. So maybe I'll do that in another video. But it's done a pretty darn good job. Something else that I should have mentioned, let's just continue with this. Something else that I should have mentioned is that these are all raw files. If I was working in this program, what I would probably do is work on the images first, make sure I've got the highlights the way I want them, the shadows, and all the adjustments on each of the images, and then I would make my panos. So you'd save them as TIFFs and then make my panos. Because as raw files, when you just send in the raw files without any adjustments, the end result when it's made a pano is a TIFF. So if your highlights are blown out or your shadows are too dark, then as a TIFF, that's going to be really hard to work on those files. So my recommendation would be to work on the files first, get them how you want them to look, and then stitch them together. Now, another function of this plugin is that it can do HDR photographs. So if you have a scene like this one here, this is in my front garden, very contrasty light. If you took multiple images, say some overexposed, some underexposed, just to try and get the details in the highlights and the shadows, you can take all of those photographs and put them into the Panorama stitching, and it'll actually still stitch them together. So let's try that out. Now this is going to be an absolutely massive file because we have 8 images here taken from the GFX 100S, but it'll be interesting to see if my computer can actually handle them and what the results are going to look like. So let's just try that out. Grab all of those images, just drag them over to the Panos stitching. See, it's having a hard time loading up. There we go. Let's have a look at the options here. Those are all clicked, and we'll just start. And again, I'll fast forward just to see, because obviously this is just going to take way too long. All right, and there we go. It actually did it. Let's have a look here. We can drag this around. There is a road back here, so I can kind of see if I've got this level or not. Looks like that might be level right there. But as you can see, the scene is very contrasty, but it has done a really great job. Now, I have turned these into a pano before, and I know that they don't line up very well. I haven't had an awful lot of luck in the past. I think one of the problems is that some of the photographs are not level. You can see in this one down here, it's not level, probably because my tripod wasn't level. But let's just see how this program does with these. So let's just grab all 12 of these raw files. These are actually from a Canon EOS 5D Mark II. So I took these quite some time ago. Just grab all of these. These images are actually from Jasper National Park, and I think the lake is called Horseshoe Lake. But don't quote me on that. I could be off on that one. I'm pretty sure it is Horseshoe Lake though. There's some amazing rock formations there with these reflections, and I really lucked out that day because it was just so calm. In retrospect, if I did this again, I would probably back off quite a bit, so I gave myself a lot more room around these reflections. But individually, the shots work quite well on their own as well, so go figure. Right, let's just grab all those and drag them all over to the Panorama stitching module. Turn on all of these, and let's see how this does. Wow, that is pretty cool. You can see though that my horizon line is off a little bit. It's somewhat level in the middle, and then it goes up at this side and down at this side. But let's just see if we can straighten this up a little bit. Looks pretty good right there. But you can see that I should have given myself more room for this. So it's it's very long and narrow, but that is quite impressive. Wow, very cool reflection. And when I made this pano, you have to realize that we're looking at 180 degrees more or less here. I mean, it was just an absolutely huge, expansive area. So I'm really impressed that it was able to stitch all of those together. Well, once again, everybody, thank you ever so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Be sure to hit the old thumbs up if you did enjoy it. And if you enjoy this type of content, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. All right, until next time, bye for now.